Well, as you know, the government shutdown continues on, and many people are being affected, employees and people who need government agencies. But guess what? There's a Salmonella outbreak during the shutdown of food that is not being inspected.
This is my nightmare scenario.
This is a nightmare scenario.
I cannot bring myself to eat chicken right now.
So,
because I know the FDA is still running in theory, but the big problem for me is that the CDC is down from what normally
70, wasn't it 70 to 80 before?
It was, yeah, an 80-person job, and now two people
have not been furloughed from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which you would think counts as something that's integral to public safety.
If they weren't before, they should be now.
Yeah.
Definitely the CDC. I think the FDA should be refunded during this time, because this is clearly like the worst thing that can happen during a government shutdown.
So 278 people across 18 states, predominantly California.
And that was the figures as of 4 days ago.
Yeah, those aren't current. We don't know what they are right now because they're a little understaffed. If you've been to any government website, I've been to the Institute for Health. I wanted to get an animation of the rubidium cloud for when we were talking about the photons that act as if they have mass. There was nothing there. I couldn't look because it was shut down. But this is very pertinent to, I think, everybody's health, because we all eat. And they're, of course, warning, cook your chicken all the way and be careful. But I think this also highlights the problem that the FDA doesn't have a super amount of funding to begin with when they're at full operation. And it's something obviously very important.
Well, I mean, like, working conditions and sanitation conditions in these companies has always been an issue, and I assume that our government agencies are at least somewhat addressing that. Whether or not they have enough funding or enough employees is one thing. The fact that that funding and those employees weren't kept on during this furlough, the fact that they were deemed non-essential is frightening.
It is frightening, and I don't think that should be the case. Obviously, if people are getting, let's say, hepatitis A found in Turkish pomegranate seeds, which actually happened over the summer, then yeah, it's a problem getting hepatitis from our food that's not being inspected all the way. So this is a nightmare situation.
The supposed farm that these are coming to is Foster Farms, based out of California.
Supposedly.
But again, yeah, no one is checking that. No one is monitoring what's coming in and out of there. No one is connecting the dots from state to state to determine, you know, the scope or expanse of this. We can only see reported sick people.
It's also been recommended from former FDA workers to stay away from probably imported foods for the time being as a precaution.
Not being checked as thoroughly.
Not being checked as thoroughly. And most of our shrimp comes from Asia.
Their laws are not as strict as ours, which normally we would catch that sort of thing when the food gets imported and we would reject it.
But the feed generally is not food. It's materials that should not be considered food, let's say like feathers or feces. And before, it was only 1% of these food shipments of many. It's only gotten higher in past years because of people wanting the demand going up. And it's just only 1% of these food shipments are being checked, and a lot of food has been rejected for being in a disgusting, filthy grade of being. There's rotted, putrid flesh. There's not proper standards going into farming these animals. And this is not new news, but it certainly is a good time to talk about it and think of how we can improve the situation.
So just be sure that you be wary of under or uncooked food while the government is shut down and while the FDA and the CDC are not at maximum capacity. Watch out for especially poultry and especially seafood.
Eat at your own risk.
Thanks, government.